The country's opposition leader, Nelson Chamisa, is with our Africa correspondent, John Sparks, who's live in Harare now. We can speak to him. John.
Yes, good evening. I am in central Harare. I am joined by the leader of the MDC Alliance Party, Nelson Chamisa, on what is a pretty extraordinary day. Last night we had the official results to the election where President Emmerson Mnangagwa claimed 50.8% of the vote. Today, a press conference held by Nelson Chamisa was essentially broken up by the riot police until they left the premises. They have now issued what most people would consider to be a fairly humiliating apology. Quite an extraordinary day, Mr. Chamisa. We have had an election that has been described by the president as free and fair. We've also had shooting on the streets on Wednesday in this city. Is this the new Zimbabwe?
Oh, definitely not. In fact, I'm extremely concerned that the leopard has not changed its spots, and the skin is the same old ways that we saw in the yesteryear dispensation of ZANU-PF, politics of terrorism, politics of violence, politics of terror, politics of tanks and guns on the streets. That is totally unacceptable. But what is more disturbing is the electoral shenanigans and theft of the will of the people. The manipulation and tampering with the will of the people is something that we don't take lightly. People in Zimbabwe are extremely concerned. This is not just a feeling in the MDC Alliance, it's a universal feeling, including those in ZANU-PF who do know that they did not win this election. If anything, they just got a declaration from the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, which is not an expression of the will of the people.
The Electoral Commission says that you have not won the presidency. They say that the MDC Alliance will not control the parliament. I mean, this is not a good result for your party.
Well, it's a very good result for our party because if you look at parliament, we've done very well. We have managed to sweep away all the cities and towns. We are in charge of all the metropoles in the country. We are also in charge of all the local authorities that are significant. So the greatest part of taxpayers and the budget that is going to sustain this economy is going to come from the MDC Alliance dominated areas. In the rural areas, we've also made significant inroads, but we must acknowledge that we've had problems in certain areas where food is being abused as a political weapon. Not only that, we also have intimidation, command approach to politics, command elections, a command voting, where people are commandeered into voting for a particular candidate in ZANU-PF, or else they risk losing their lives or not getting food. This has been a problem, and this is part of why we are challenging those results in the parliamentary. So once we have successfully challenged those results, we will get the majority in parliament. And of course, we've won the popular vote in the presidency. There's no doubt that we have a popular vote ahead of Mr. Mnangagwa. He knows it. He acknowledges it. Of course,
he doesn't acknowledge it.
He does.
Tonight he said in his press conference that he won the election freely and fairly.
That's his claim, but he knows the truth. Acknowledging the truth, and of course what he's claiming now is expedience, because he has been in cahoots with the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission to try and manipulate and alter the will of the people, which is not possible. And this is why we are pursuing all our legal and constitutional routes to make sure that we negate this kind of cheating. It's not possible. People voted, but you can see that there's been cheating on the part of ZEC and also on the part of Mr. Mnangagwa.
What does Nelson Chamisa do next? What does the party do next? You say you're going to go to the courts. Do you trust the courts?
Well, it's not a question of trusting the courts. It's a question of trusting the authenticity and the currency of the message that we have and the kind of evidence we have. We have overwhelming evidence of areas where certain figures were inflated in favor of Mr. Mnangagwa, areas where they deflated figures that were coming the MDC Alliance side. So
we have evidence for this?
Hardcore evidence, in fact, paper evidence, V11 forms, which are polling station-based forms. Those we are going to use at appropriate levels in engaging ZEC, but also in articulating our message to the international world. But more importantly, we want to appreciate the support we've had from the international community for genuine, free and fair elections, and also for making sure that there's accountability, which has been lacking in this election.
Do you really think you can overturn the presidential result in the courts?
We are not going to overturn anything. If anything, what we are going to overturn is the declaration by ZEC. The result is in our favor. It's not as if we've been defeated. We had more votes than Mr. Mnangagwa in the popular vote. I won the presidency. Mr. Mnangagwa was then declared president. So there's an anomaly. We need to undo the damage done by ZEC because of their lack of integrity, their lack of consistency, and of course their partisanship. Their bias is unbelievable. It even stings in high heaven.
Do you want people to come out onto the streets? Are you calling for demonstrations? You've seen what's happened earlier this week.
I've said that because of homelessness, joblessness, and hopelessness in the country, people are already in the streets. So I can't call them to come where they are already. They are resident in the streets automatically. They are there because of poverty, disenfranchisement, and of course the disappointment that they have had a raw deal of missed opportunities and neglected advantages on account of what is happening in this country. So what I simply have to do is to activate those people and show them direction in a peaceful manner to say we have a right to protect our vote, defend our vote, and of course make sure that our vote counts in terms of where we want this country to go, on opportunities, on transformation, and of course, most importantly, on the issue of prosperity. Zimbabweans need a fighting platform, a fighting advantage, a fighting chance. And for them to be able to get that, they need a leadership that governs and governs differently.
President Mnangagwa extended an olive branch to you tonight. He says you have a crucial role to play in this country. What's your response to that?
Of course, he must extend an olive branch as a person who is gracious in defeat. I have to be magnanimous in victory, which I've been, and this is why I've been making an effort to try and reach him, to say, how do we move forward now that we have won this election, now that we've had this kind of bungling by the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission? How do we negate this kind of electoral skullduggery, which does not help our country in terms of refocusing the country internationally as a country that is ready to join the family of nations? We don't want to continue to have this pariah status and this banana republic. But to be able to do that, we must also be able to chlorinate our own domestic processes in a manner that gives confidence to citizens, but also to the international community, investors included.
It is President Mnangagwa who will be inaugurated. You will not be inaugurated. He will. The power rests with him.
Certainly not. Inauguration, it takes two to tango. We have been very key in this. We got the majority vote. We got the popular vote. We have overwhelming evidence of where he cheated and where there was deception in cahoots with certain forces that we are going to exhume and review. So we will not allow an inauguration that is done without an understanding of the issues that we have to deal with. Let us have an inauguration on the basis of a true and accurate reflection of the will of the people. So don't worry about his wishes. Wishes are not necessarily the reality. We have to come in and assert our position.
Who is President Emmerson Mnangagwa? Is he a long-time member of the old regime, or is he a new Democrat? Is he the man promising a new dawn? In your view, who is he?
President Mnangagwa is the man who has presided over the past 3-4 days of chaos, the chaos in the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission with the cheating and manipulation of the figures, fidgeting with the result. President Mnangagwa is the president of, tanks on the streets for people who are supposed to be celebrating and in jubilation. Where on earth would you have an election result that does not inspire any confidence, any happiness, or some kind of jubilation on the streets?
You call it a day of mourning today.
Yes, indeed, it is a day of mourning, because what they are mourning is the kind of dishonesty in government, the kind of deficit of integrity on the part of ZEC, which is supposed to be an independent national institution. So that's President Mnangagwa for you. The kind of harassment, and persecution of journalists, international journalists and observers that you saw today at our press conference, that is the kind of presidents that we would want to run away from. And this is why we want to usher in a new president that we are ready to offer. Look at what they've done to our party supporters, invading our headquarters, taking away our information, and continue to harass and arrest our leaders in the Movement for Democratic Change Alliance. That is an issue we are going to confront, and that is President Mnangagwa for you.
This is a crucial moment for the government. They are seeking finance, they're seeking funds from the IMF, the World Bank, other international lenders. They want this election to be judged to be free and fair, to have that box ticked so they can then go on to the international markets. What is your message to the foreign observers?
Well, let the observation be based on what they saw. And what they saw is absence of freeness, absence of credibility in the processes. There is actually a deficit of process integrity. If you look at the value chain of the whole voting process, the ballot process in terms of the printing, you go to the way people voted, it's clear that the conditions and circumstances for a free and fair election do not exist. And what they then choose to say is what we respect, because they also have an independent assessment of the situation. But our message is that please help us help ourselves to liberate ourselves from the claws and manacles of oppression and this dictatorship that thrives on terrorizing citizens and abusing ordinary people who are unarmed, but are then targeted using open fire and also live bullets.
Do you feel safe? Do you have to be brave to be in opposition politics in this country?
Well, I suppose it takes a lot of sacrifice, it takes a lot of service, it takes a lot of courage. And I must give tribute to Dr. Richard Morgan Tsvangirai, who was carrying the mantle for 18 years. I'm just coming in, again, I was with him, but I'm coming in as the leader. I have to make sure that I balance two things: reorganizing the country, reforming it and reconstructing our economy, but also dealing with the party to make sure that it's anchored as a permanent feature in the family of democracy and Democrats.
You drew huge crowds across the country with thousands of ecstatic people, but the reality is that you will spend another 5 years in opposition. That is the most likely reality here.
The reality is that we're in government already. We're in government in the local authorities. We're in government in the cities. We are in charge of the provincial government of Harare, the provincial government of Bulawayo. We're in charge of the cities and towns as mayors, as councillors. We're in charge of the central government as president. And I know that you may not believe, but very soon you will see what we are talking about. We are ready to govern. We have been given the mandate by the people. People voted overwhelmingly. And we thank the people of Zimbabwe for reposing such confidence in us. And we are not going to disappoint them.
You are relatively young for political figures in this country. You are a lawyer and a pastor. Is this what you thought you would be doing?
Well, it's something that I never budgeted for. But the truth of the matter is that I'm driven by the passion to do the best for my country and to do the best for my generation. So that is what drives me. I'm where I never anticipated I would be. As you know, I was deputizing Dr. Morgan Tsvangirai. He passed on, and now we carry on the mantle and the baton stick, making sure that we achieve real change. It's a tough job, but those challenges have really fortified us for the task ahead.
And the party is split, isn't it?
The party is so united. In fact, we are so happy. We have done so well. 2 million votes is not a joke, even by the tally of ZEC, which is disputed. So over 2 million votes tells you that we are a live and kicking party. We are a young, dynamic party, one credible organization on the African continent that is sure to deliver democracy to the people of Zimbabwe and, of course, the African continent. So the party is so united. Yes, we've had individuals who, from time to time, on account of indiscipline, are then disciplined. That cannot be taken as a weakness. If anything, it is chlorination and distillation of our own internal processes.
You're pushing the boundaries in this country, aren't you? You're pushing the boundaries in a country that has been essentially an authoritarian state since independence, since 1980. That is going to make a lot of people in the administration feel very uncomfortable. And I wonder if that is why we saw riot police turning up at your press conference today. What is your message to those people in government who don't like you, don't like your message, don't like the fact that you've called this election experiment invalid?
In fact, I totally appreciate that question, and that is so pertinent in terms of how we have dealt with our bureaucrats in government. What we seek to change are not the civil servants, who continue to be a permanent feature of the government. And they do appreciate our message. If you look at our vote tally in Harare, we got close to about over 500,000. That tells you that it does include those who are in government, who believe in change. Mr. Mnangagwa got a few hundreds of thousands, which tells you also that a lot of our people in Zimbabwe, in the cities, in government, do believe in the message. They are connecting with our narrative. They are connecting with our framed debate on how to correct the situation, remedy the mistakes of the past, and of course cure the gaps that have characterized the governance and economics of our country.
When the riot police turned up at the Bronte Hotel, were you there? And if so, what were you thinking?
I was there, but of course I'm used to it. You know, chaos is the DNA of our colleagues in ZANU-PF. Violence is their natural default setting. Each time they feel that they are threatened by an opponent, they always resort to the muscle instead of the brain. They always resort to guns and bullets instead of respecting the power of ideas. And this is the difference. But for us, we are not intimidated. We have sacrificed. We are ready to go to the logical conclusion of our commitment to this struggle.
Finally, what can Zimbabwe look forward to in the next couple of years? The economy is in a desperate state.
Yes, it's such
Politics are terribly divided.
Indeed.
What is going to happen here?
Well, we need to heal our nation. We need to unite our country and be able to be happy again, smile again. And that is only possible with a focused leadership. But more importantly, in our view, we need to begin to build bridges. We need to invite the United Kingdom, the United States of America, the Western world, and indeed the entire world to be able to partner with Zimbabweans to be able to reconstruct and rebuild our economy, but we begin also to create solid and viable world-class infrastructure for such a great country. We are great people, a loving people with some brilliant people from our midst, engineers, lawyers. We need to give them a chance, an opportunity to shine and an opportunity to be great as citizens of the world.
Nelson Chamisa, thank you very much for speaking to us on Sky News here in central Harare on a day that Mr. Chamisa describes as a day of mourning, the day that President Mnangagwa was confirmed as the president of this country with 50.8% of the vote.